everyone. Welcome to PolitiFest 2020, Pick Your Future. I'm Maya Srikrishnan, and I'm a reporter at Voice of San Diego. It's great to be here with you this evening. In case you're not familiar with us, Voice of San Diego is a nonprofit investigative news organization committed to holding public officials accountable and giving you, the public, the tools you need to be advocates for the public good. As a nonprofit, we depend on members and donors like you to make our work possible. Thank you for your support. I'd like to take a minute to recognize our sponsors who help make PolitiFest possible. A special thanks to Google News Initiative for supporting the creation of this virtual event, to the College of Arts and Sciences at USD for underwriting all student tickets, and to the San Diego Foundation for supporting our community conversations. Also, thank you to Cox Communications, SDG&E, the Atlantis Group, the City of San Diego Retired Employees Association, City Heights Community Development Corporation, the San Diego County Democratic Party, and Business for Good. Remember, there are events through noon on Saturday, October 3rd. Check the schedule on the event website. We are offering several sessions for free throughout the event, as well as some sessions in both English and Spanish. Go to the Sessions tab in the event website to see all your options. There are lots of sessions, and we know you can't attend them all. You'll be able to watch the recordings on all sessions on our website. The recordings will be available by noon the following day. You can also use the online event guide on CVent to connect with other attendees and learn about speakers and sponsors. And be sure to get your own VOSD mug or drinking glass. Click the link in the chat to order now. For this session, put your questions in the comment box. As a reminder, everyone's camera and mic, except for the moderator and the panelists, is turned off and muted. You can tweet along with the sessions and share your experience by using the hashtag PolitiFest2020 on social media. Now, allow me to introduce our moderator, Claire Trageser, who is an investigative journalist at KPBS.
Hi, thank you. Excited to be here and do this. As Maya said, my name's Claire Trageser. I'm a reporter at KPBS, not actually in the KPBS newsroom at the moment, but I have a nice virtual background that makes you think that's what I'm doing. So today we have the two candidates for District 7 City Council. It's an open seat vacated by outgoing Councilman Scott Sherman, and it covers areas including Linda Vista, Mission Valley, Allied Gardens, Del Cerro. So first up, we have Raul Campillo, and he is originally from El Cajon, I believe. He earned his undergraduate and law school degrees from Harvard. He spent time as an elementary school teacher and working on political campaigns, and now he works as a deputy city attorney for the city of San Diego, and he lives in Mission Valley. And now we have Noli Zosa. He is originally from Huntington Beach. He earned his undergraduate and law school degrees from the University of San Diego, and then he became a founding partner of the local restaurant chain Dirty Birds. He's also served on a number of different groups, including the San Diego Parks and Recreation Board, the City of San Diego Mobility Board, and chairman of the Linda Vista Planning Group. And he lives in Linda Vista, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, good. If I got anything wrong, I'm sure you guys will correct me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, to start, I wanted to ask both of you. So your predecessor, whoever gets elected, Councilman Scott Sherman, is sort of famous for his disdain for the job. He even has a countdown clock on his desk, which is probably getting quite low at this point. And you both have pretty good careers right now. So tell me if you think you're up for the bureaucracy and politics that come with being a city councilman, and how you'd handle the frustrations of the job. And Noli Zosa, we can start with you first.
Yeah, I've through my decades, I've been involved in the community and the city for nearly 3 decades. But the last 5 years, I've gotten involved in numerous different boards and commissions with the city of San Diego, and just taking the time to learn how the city operates and what it does well and what it doesn't do well. And what I found out is the city is like a big aircraft carrier with a rudder the size of a sailboat. It's very, very hard to get change done in the city and to get things done. It's frustrating coming from a business background where we can get things done a lot more efficiently and a lot more quickly than we do in government. So, it's definitely been frustrating just watching our government, and I was tired of sitting there and just not being happy with how our city government's is being run. And so I was encouraged to get involved because of my being a business leader in San Diego and my extensive community work, being on almost 20 different boards and commissions and organizations. I lost count because I keep getting involved in more and more. But it is, it's frustrating. But I hope to change some of those things I don't like how the city is being operated and run right now.
So how would you handle those frustrations? Say it takes a month to get something just posted on your district website or something like that. What would you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's building I think everything is building those relationships with people from even different political backgrounds or people that don't necessarily agree with you. I've taken the time to get to know people in the city and get them to know me and to like me. And I've taken the time to sit on all these different boards and commissions. And if you talk to people that have served with me on these different boards, and they say that I'm a good person to work with. And it's things that just don't make sense. Like when I joined the Parks and Recreation Board, one thing that I found out was it just didn't make any sense. Why don't we have Wi-Fi at our recreation centers, but we have them at our public libraries? It just didn't make any sense to me. But these are some of the things, and I talk with the top people. The director of Parks and Recreation Board is like, Noli, please get this done. The city just doesn't make the best decisions, or they just have the wrong mentality when it comes to a lot of things. But it's really being able to work with your colleagues, no matter who they are, or if they don't agree with you on a lot of things. But this is a nonpartisan office, and I tend to treat it that way. And to build those relationships that we need to get so we can get things done in the city.
Okay. And Raul Campillo, same question to you. Do you think you're up for the bureaucracy in politics, and how would you handle the frustrations?
Absolutely. I think I'm up for the job. Part of it is for two reasons. 5 new city councilors are going to be elected in this upcoming November election. And I've had the pleasure of showing up to all the same meetings and all the same debates and all the same forums, and sometimes even crossing paths, when we're going to support the same unions who are speaking up for their rights, all these different events. And so I've gotten to know who my future colleagues are going to be. And we've talked about policies that we want to see get done. We've talked about how we want to change the culture of the city council from people who are thinking parochially and instead of with one vision. I think part of the issue too is that we've had a divided government. We've had a Republican mayor and a city council that disagrees with them, and so obviously there's things come to a grind, and there's going to be compromises that have to be made and negotiated. But I think that in this upcoming council, we're going to see people who are very friendly with each other and willing to work together to see big projects done for San Diego. The other thing I'd say is, how would I handle something differently? I'm coming at this from a very bit different background than everybody else. My time as an attorney, my time as a prosecutor, being in court where you have to constantly negotiate with the defense. You're having to make sure that you're on top of everything for the judge and for the jury. Just the day-to-day of being on my toes and making sure I'm 100% prepared for everything that comes my way. I'm not a person who says, I'm going to have 2 or 3 days to look into this and figure this out. I go into a meeting ready to roll. And I think that the other 4 races for 1, 3, 5, and 9, the people who are going to win those races know that about me and are going to find me to be a good colleague to work with. So I'm ready to handle the job on day one.
Okay, great. Well, Noli Zosa, this question is just for you, the next one. So in June, you said during an interview, the news networks love this because their ratings are doubled, and you were talking about COVID-19. They want this to continue as long as possible, and that means sensationalizing the story to make sure the crisis continues as long as possible. So first of all, do you stand by those comments?
Those comments were back in April during the height of the shutdown. It was a really tough time for all of us, but especially as small business owners, that we're seeing our livelihoods completely being lost. And our employees, we had to furlough over 100 of our employees at Dirty Birds. And first of all, I was talking about the national media, because the only thing we can do during that time was just sit there and watch the national news. I had this chat with June Cutter, a friend of mine, and I was expressing my frustration with what was going on. And for me, it was a tough time personally because my father was in the hospital starting in late January and all through this year. And I recently lost him 3 weeks ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear
and
that.
I never got to see him, and neither did my mother during that entire time because of the COVID-19 shutdown. So it was really, really a tough time. First of all, I was talking about the national media, expressed my frustration. It had nothing to do with the local media. But I don't stand by those words. It was a time where I was just extremely frustrated, and the media, especially the local media, does a great job covering it. But when I was just sitting there watching CNN, couldn't do anything. But look at what I did when I instead of just not being happy about the situation, I got involved in trying to help with what was going on. I got with my partners, and we started Winging It Forward, where we donated over 50,000 wings to over 50 different hospitals, ERs, local service agencies, fire departments, police stations, and feeding the people that take care of us. I also got involved with Computers to Kids. I became an ambassador to Computers to Kids that takes in old computers from businesses and people that want to update their computers, and we give them to low-income families or sell them for only a fully loaded computer for only $80. Because what this pandemic has shown us is that there's a tremendous digital divide between what people, since we're homeschooling our kids, that a lot of low-income families don't have computers. And the other thing that I did was I got together with some Chinese American organizations, and who raised tens of thousands of dollars for PPE equipment, and that community has been so discriminated against right now because of the virus. And we got with them, and we wanted to really show that the Chinese American community, the Asian community, is doing something. And so we went around to the different businesses in my district giving away PPE equipment. And I hashtag COVID is still here. It's a very serious thing. I lost a friend about a week and a half ago to COVID. He was my age down in the South Bay, my friend Carlo. So it's a serious thing. And I'm embarrassed by those words. I want to apologize to people in the media because at that time I think a lot of people were just very, very upset. And I was upset. And and I deserve all the criticism for it. Absolutely all the criticism for it. And I wish I could take those words back, but I'm going to live with it because I'll own it to my mistakes.
I'm sorry to hear about your father and your friend. Do you feel like our local government's reaction to COVID has been too severe, or has it been appropriate?
Well, the biggest, it's been mixed actually, because the city has done the one thing that they did for our restaurants is they give us the outdoor dining option, and which has been a lifeline for us restaurants. Because if it wasn't for that, we'd have a lot more restaurants folding and going out of business. But during this time when it's summer and the weather's nice, not so much the last few days because it's been extremely hot, but it's been allow us to survive. So I really like the response that the city has done. The criticism I have is that they've really picked winners and losers between the big box retailer stores, where they've given the health guidelines to continue staying open, but not giving us those same guidelines to operate as small businesses, which drive the city. Small businesses, as we found out during this pandemic, really drive the city and are the big job creators and in this city, and that's who has been most affected. So it's been a mixed response for me.
And Raul Campillo, what would you have changed about the county's response to COVID, if anything?
Well, one of the things in my job that I've done numerous times is prosecuted people who violate tuberculosis health orders. And that's not a controversial issue. When a person is supposed to be quarantined and they walk out and are exposing others, they get a citation and they have to pay a fine, and then it can ratchet up depending on how much they flaunt the health order. And I don't know why COVID wasn't the same. I don't know why the sheriff's office department wasn't instructed to cite individuals who were flagrantly violating the health order. I don't know why businesses that decided that they weren't going to follow the health order weren't put on notice quicker. That public health is how you build into a better economy. It's not one or the other. You have to have the public health and the confidence that a person can leave their home without getting sick, so that they can then be part of the commercial stream and be able to spend their money. So I think that if we would have had early enforcement, not harsh enforcement, but just early enforcement, things would have been better. It's the same as why in San Diego we don't really have a culture of jaywalking, because people know that you can get ticketed for jaywalking here. It's similar to what happened with scooters. People were riding them on sidewalks or riding them in inappropriate spots, and we didn't cite anybody. And then it became part of the early culture of scooters to just abuse them and leave them wherever, and they were health hazards. So if we would have had early enforcement, we would have set the tone that we take this seriously. And so it didn't have to be imprisoning people, but at least show that we're taking it seriously.
You mean early enforcement in terms of masks or what?
In terms of people that were not obviously not social distancing, and in terms of citing people who were holding parties bigger than 10, things like that. The very specific guidelines of what was expected of people when they were in public. That's really where we should have gone. And it would have set a tone if people realized, they could be fined a few $100s for breaking the health guidelines of the 1 in 100 year lifetime crisis that we're facing right now. And so the county really dropped the ball by not enforcing it earlier.
Okay. This question is along the same lines for both of you, but I'll start with you, Raul, since we're already talking. Do you think schools should be open right now with restrictions such as smaller class sizes and masks required?
I'm not sure about that because it seems to me that we can't ensure yet that students and their families and teachers and staff aren't going to be essentially petri dishes for spreading COVID. I'm as eager as anybody to see the health of our community improve so that children can go back to school. I'm a former school teacher. I know how important it is to be in the environment with your teacher, socializing with your friends, and growing up in a socialized manner. And I know the pressure that it's putting on parents who have to stay home with their kids, who have to make sure that they're following along remotely, or even struggling to pay for the internet or the resources to connect through remote. So I'm in no way am I downplaying any of that, but we can't expect to beat COVID if we're going to open up a place where in a classroom we're going to have 25, 30 people. The fact is that people might not be symptomatic and spread it too easily. So I'm not ready to see schools opened yet.
Got it. And what about you, Noli Zosa?
Yeah, I agree with Raul with a lot of the same sentiments, but I've talked with hundreds of parents and kids, and when I'm talking with them around the communities and teachers and staff, and the one thing they say is like, you know what, we got to have a plan to keep everybody safe. And I don't think the school district has come up with a really solid plan to keep everybody safe. And until they have that security and that confidence that they can return their kids to school, I don't think we're ready for that yet. But I would like to see other options explored. Like we have outdoor dining. Maybe let's have some classes conducted outdoors, assuming that there is room at on the school grounds, and maybe a few times a week. But because the one thing, especially with the young children, is the socialization. You can't. That's one thing that the young kids are missing, is that socialization that you can't get over a computer screen. And keeping kids locked into a computer screen is hard enough, but for extended periods of time. But let's. I don't think we're ready yet. But I don't want to. I hate seeing when schools open and there be a spike, and I don't want to be responsible or advising the city on saying that the schools are completely safe and we should return the kids back to school and teachers go back to school. So I don't think we're there yet. I don't think a solid plan is there yet. So let's wait a little bit.
So it sounds like you're both kind of on the side of not yet. We're not quite ready yet. Need to keep working on it a little bit longer. Okay, well, so Raul, this question is for you. Your boss, City Attorney Mara Elliott, has been involved in some controversial issues, including altering the state's public records laws and defending the city's streetlight cameras, which have now been turned off. Is there anything you take issue with that she has done?
Well, I think that Mara has apologized for her proposal to amend the Public Records Act. I think that was pretty clear from her Union Tribune interview for the primary. And so I'm not sure why we're still talking about that. That's long past. On the streetlights issue, I'm happy to be a supporter of Councilwoman Montgomery Stepp's new incoming ordinance that's going to set up a commission to review all uses of surveillance technology so that we can make sure that we're not being overcharged and underserved on the data we're supposed to get for it, to make sure that there's protections for privacy. These are all things I've had discussions with key activists in the community and with city staff, and I think that's going to be great. In my own job, I've actually used street light, or rather the street light cameras recordings in prosecutions, and actually it was for dismissal of prosecutions. And so we know that that can be useful. We've seen murders solved from this. No one's disputing that it can have a public safety benefit. What it really needs to do is have those built-in protections for taxpayers, for privacy, and I think that Mara's on board with that.
So, what would be your ideal, solution to that? Because right now they're off. What do you want to see happen?
Well, I'd want to see the commission put together. I'd want to see a review of that contract and the type of data that it collects and how the city uses it. And then if we find that the protections are there, if the commission recommends to the council and to the mayor's office that the protections are indeed in place, we then turn them back on.
Okay. And then I'm wondering, do you support the ballot measure to change the authority of the city attorney? I know it's not going to be in this election. It got delayed to the next one, but would you support that?
No, I wouldn't. And there's a really important reason why. As we've seen from basically every decade going back for 4 decades, there's been a mayoral issue, a corruption issue, misconduct issues. And the person who's been independent from all of that is the city attorney, who's able to investigate and recommend to the city council without any sort of political bias, without any political control from the mayor's office, what to do in those situations. So I think that it's important that the voters continue to have a strong voice in choosing their own city attorney. I would not have been in favor of that proposal passing. And on top of that, I know that the way it was drafted was really to strip. It was very peculiar details, but a lot of it was about stripping away from Mara her ability to appoint assistant city attorneys. It was actually within the purview of the council to be able to give the new municipal council office all of those assistant city attorneys. And so they could have really hamstrung the criminal division and the prosecutorial office from having, good leadership. And whatever issues are there between the city attorney's office and the current city councilors, I think that's really going to change, because we're going to have 5 new city councilors coming in who are eager to work together with the city attorney's office, and I'm one of them.
So you feel like it was a targeted thing, maybe toward Mara Elliott specifically?
I think that, yes, I do think that. I know that there was discussions as to, whether or not Mara works well with the current city councilors, and I don't think that they particularly like the fact that she took to court the ballot initiatives for SDSU West or for Soccer City because of the nature of that type of initiative, whether it was a legislative action or an administrative action. And so I think that those lawsuits turned people on both sides of the aisle against her because she was trying to be diligent. And we saw how much credit she got because of SDSU West, her putting the brakes on the deal to make sure there was lots more protections and the price was right. And so I think that, people were upset that she was taking a non-political, legally sound position to try to save taxpayers' money and preserve the power of the council. So they wanted to push through deals, and I think that set people against her.
Got it. And Noli, what do you think about that ballot measure to change the authority of the city attorney?
Yeah, I would support that. I think the city attorney's office, I like Amara Elliott personally. She's very, very nice. And but she's the advisor to the city. She is the legal counsel to the city council. And some of her criticisms, I remember back to when that memo that Chris Cate that involved Councilman Chris Cate, where she really went after him. And a lot of it was deserved. It was a confidential memo, but a lot of the criticism it seemed very political. And there's a reason why this was brought up, because people are seeing some of her decisions as political. So it's I would like to take politics out of that office, the city attorney's office, and have someone appointed that doesn't bring politics into such an important advisory role to the city and to the city council.
Okay. We're going to move on to another question. I just wanted to remind people who are watching, feel free to put any questions you have for the candidates in the comments section, because we'll probably jump over to that in about 10 minutes if there are questions. So put them in now so that we can ask the candidates for you. Okay, so you both have mentioned reforming the police department in campaign literature or public statements. So we can start with you, Noli. Can you name one specific reform that you think should be implemented?
Yeah, I brought forth the idea of what the Law Officer Training Corps, the LOTC, which would be the equivalent of the ROTC on college campuses, where we'd offer scholarships to young adults that are looking to go to law enforcement. And we'd like to recruit from people in neighborhoods that have been most affected by police misconduct, and because we need a more representative police department. So once they get into college, they would act as community service officers, taking away some of the administrative responsibilities of sworn police officers. And so sworn police officers can actually do the duties that they should be concentrating on, which is preventing crime and solving crime. So it would save money on recruitment. The city spends millions of dollars on recruitment of police officers. And this idea has had great input from 3 different police chiefs, Chief Nislight and Jerry Sanders, and former Chief Shelley Zimmerman really liked the idea, and she wanted to bring it she works for National University, wanted to bring it to the president of National University and perhaps implementing into their program. Raul is going to say that there are elements of the plan that I brought forth in the 1994 crime bill. Okay, but that it's not been implemented here. So just because it's been, some of the elements have been that I've been talking about have been tried in other cities, but let's take it to another level, because there's nothing. This is such an important issue, and we need to revisit this and see if it would actually help recruit and train our next generation of police officers. It's also been great. I also got great feedback from the president of the University of San Diego, Dr. James Harris, that said, "Wow, this is a great program. I would love to bring it to my campus here." So let's explore it. It's not perfect. Maybe there was some elements that had been talked about in the 1994 crime bill, but you know what? Let's try something different. And because we really, really need to reform our police.
All right. Well, let's have Raul answer, and then we can maybe talk a little bit more about what you mean. Go ahead.
Sure. So just fundamentally, that plan is not something the city council can do because it requires state and federal funding. So the plan itself is not within our purview to perform. So let's just get that out of the way. For me, I'm seeing that the San Diego Police Department was the first domino in San Diego County to really start the change in policies, the first to get rid of the carotid restraint, the first to, in essence, get behind the independent commission on police practices so that other law enforcement agencies would take their lead and come on board and be part of these conversations. So I think that, San Diego Police Department, when it comes to changing up things in their policies, we got to say, what is the amount of training? Noli makes a good point that training is an important aspect of how good the police force really interacts with the community. And so that is important, but it can't be seen as a sort of a thing that an intern is going to learn in the middle of college, in between classes and being stationed out in other areas. It has to be part of a regular continuing education. As an attorney, we have to take classes and re-up our bar card every 3 years with classes to show that we are keeping up to date with the law, with ethics, and other aspects that are relevant to our profession. And I think that the San Diego Police Department and the training they give really has to be emphasizing that continual basis. And of course, it has to include things like understanding the history of community relations with the police department in the past in San Diego and across the country. It's got to include things like unconscious bias. It's got to include things like emphasizing decentralized community policing and force de-escalation. There actually is already a force de-escalation policy, but it's not emphasized enough. I've actually read the policy. It's a little bit buried in between a bunch of other things. There has to be a specific policy that is, at the forefront of what we're doing to reform the police, so that we can actually prevent misconduct.
Noli, do you want to respond to that and explain a little bit more about what your plan is for people who may not know?
Yeah, I mean, it's, when you're talking about interns, I interned at the city attorney's office while I was in law school in code enforcement. And that's one of the things he did. You have interns in your office, Raul, I'm sure, and they work. I worked on putting together cases, and when I was at one of the things that I did was we prosecuted slumlords when I was at the deputy city attorney's office, and I helped put together the cases for the deputy city attorneys. And the same thing, you'd be under the supervision of police officers. We're not going to just hand over investigation and all the administrative duties to interns to just go unsupervised. But the idea is this is what I've heard from the police chiefs, that a better trained and a better educated police officer, and getting 4 years of education and taking classes like in sociology and alternative dispute resolution and mental health, and maybe some medical classes, so many things that our police officers have to do on the streets every single day will make for a better police officers, because police academies are about 6 to 9 months. And of course they have to go through training as a cadets, but it's just not long enough. But what if we give the opportunity for a 4-year education where we have police officers get the benefit of a 4-year college education, along with all the other training under the strict supervision of our sworn police officers. And they act as, like I said, community service officers in the community. And we get a more representative police force. So the goals are noble, and it's not perfect, but we have the general. I just put together this general guidelines, and let's rely on some of the other experts let's go over the plan and see if we can make this happen. So it's worth exploring. It's something new, and why don't we do something about it?
Sure. Okay. I mean, I'm hearing you both talk a lot about training. Are there any specific reforms that you think the existing police officers, police departments need to make?
Go ahead, Raul, if you want to.
I mean that I think the difference between, first of all, training people as they're coming up and then entering, which we saw over the course of 10 years, only led to 2,000 police officers across all 50 states over about 10 years. We need to train police now on the things we expect them to do now. So I think that this is a fundamental reform of really injecting a new mindset so that officers that really do want to do better, like let's admit this, the vast majority of the San Diego Police Department, their officers want to do better and build that trust. If you want a more representative police force, we need to make it affordable to live in San Diego so that they don't have to live in Temecula or Poway or Lakeside, so that they can live in the city in which they serve and protect. And then fundamentally, another thing is, with the Union Tribune interview, Noli noted that the students would be taking over report writing for police officers, which I have to point out as a prosecutor, since I've read thousands of police reports, we can't be having people who are learning up and coming writing police reports for officers who are the initial viewer, collector of evidence. That's going to be a serious criminal law and prosecution problem going forward. So there's really a lot of potholes in this plan, but I don't want to undersell how important of a reform it is to get training now, because a lot of the issues we're seeing are right now. The community doesn't want to wait for 8-10 years to see something change. They want to see something done now.
Noli, did you want to add anything else, or otherwise I'm going to move on to something else?
Yeah, it's we got to figure out how to just make sure that we don't expect our police officers to do everything. We expect them to do whenever we have a call about anything. Who do we call? We call 911. We call the non-emergency number, and we expect our police to respond and do it perfectly. And we can't do it. Nobody's perfect, and our police officers, nobody's perfect, and they will make mistakes. But if we bring in PERT and mental health professionals to deal with the homeless, the people experiencing homelessness, to respond to some of those calls, all the more better. But we got to take some of the duties off of our police officers, because it leads to what we're encountering today.
Okay. So it seems pretty likely that the city will have to make further budget cuts in the next fiscal year. So maybe, Raul, we can start with you. Where would you make those cuts, and what would be off limits to you not to cut?
Sure. Let's start with what's off limits first. We're not going to be cutting city employees' pay. And fundamentally, one of the biggest problems we have with running our government is that our city employees are paid far less than surrounding municipalities. And so that's a talent drain to come to San Diego, get trained, get a job, and then go to a different jurisdiction and get paid more. So part of the recruitment dollars that Noli was talking about earlier is actually a result of us not taking care of our workers for the past 10 years. So we're not going to be cutting, if I'm voting to cut city employees' pay. Where we can cut the budget, though, is actually getting rid of all the consultants and outside engineers and surveyors and all these outside experts who actually cost us more money to get projects, permits reviewed, to make sure that we're designing our streets appropriately. All these things are outsourced. And so it costs more money. It takes longer time. We have less supervision. Really, those things need to be in-house. In the city of San Diego, we need to hire those experts so that they work for us, and so that we're not paying outside contracts. And that adds up to $200 million a year between the general fund and the enterprise funds together. So really, that's what I'm looking at to say, how can we stop spending so much money on consultants and actually hire employees to the city where they're working in-house?
Okay. Noli, what would you cut and what would be off limits?
Well, we got to look at what the core responsibilities of our city government, and the two most important are the public safety and infrastructure. So those are the two things that we cannot sacrifice any budget cuts, and then we work our way down. The one thing that people, especially in District 7, but all over San Diego, they are so concerned about the condition of our streets and our roads, which is part of infrastructure. I sit on the City of San Diego Mobility Board, and the one thing that I completely disagree with is Sandeg's move to spend $279 million on protected bike lanes, taking away much-needed parking spaces in front of businesses and in neighborhoods. And that's a Sandeg thing, but that money has been appropriated, but it hasn't been funded yet. So the one thing that I will fight against is the funding for these protected bike lanes and taking away parking spaces for these protected bike lanes, because it is very, very expensive. These protected bike lanes are very, very expensive. They are about $7 to $8 million a mile for these protected bike lanes. It takes anywhere between $100,000 for just a slurry seal to $1 million to do a full overlay. Can you imagine how many hundreds of miles we can pave our streets if we didn't spend the money on protected bike lanes? So that's the first thing I would take away money from. But I also want to take away and see if the business can commute. I came up with an idea. We haven't adopted a highway. I would like businesses and the city to come up with and adopt a neighborhood where businesses would take control over cleaning up and maintaining certain neighborhoods and streets in particular streets or particular neighborhoods, which is a function of our city, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Me and my people on my staff last Saturday, we went out onto Mission Gorge and Princess View, and we went out there and cleaned the weeds. And we caught in the hot blazing sun for 3 hours, filled with 20 trash bags worth of weeds and overgrown brush, and we cleaned it out. And we did that just because, let's do it, because we can't. People are always complaining about the condition of our streets and the overgrowth after the rainy season. So if we can do that from the business industry or private individual organizing cleanups like that, that will take away some of the money that we have to spend on that from the city budget.
So you're saying a cut would be to have businesses go out and, proactively clean up instead of city crews doing it?
Yeah, I mean, if we adopt a neighborhood program, because if we can save some money on that end, where businesses can step up and sponsor a particular street or particular neighborhood and clean up the weeds, because right where I live, right off Ulrich, it's just weeds always get overgrowth. It's just very, very poorly maintained, and we always, as long as we go on the app, Get It Done app. It takes forever for the city to come out and clean those weeds and that overgrowth. So I would like to see so the business community hopefully stepping up and wanting to participate in exchange. They get some free advertising and showing that they're invested in their community. Just like our restaurants, Dirty Birds, we try to invest heavily in every single community and sponsor as many different community activities and events. But, I would like to see our San Diego business community step up. And, our business community loves San Diego. And as much as we can step up, as much as we're hurting, I would like to see us engage in that public-private partnerships to get more things done in the city.
Okay. I want to grab some of the audience questions, and I also solicited some questions on Nextdoor, so I can ask you some of those too. They're pretty specific, district-specific questions. And make sure if you're listening, if you have a question, put it in the comment section, and we can ask. Okay, this should be a short one. Who are you going to vote for president in November? Raul, we can start with you. That would be pretty fast. Okay, Noli.
Gosh, did you guys all watch that debate last night? I was extremely frustrated and disappointed. I think the biggest loser in this was the American people. I'm running for city council, a local office. I'm not running for Congress or national. All my work that I've done over the 30 years has never been on political campaigns or for national political figures. It's all about the city and all about the community. And that's what I'm concentrating on. I'm not happy with either one, to tell you the truth. It's just after their performance last night, it was embarrassing last night, and so disappointed, and I'm so consumed, and I'm sure Raul is with this with our campaigns, that I honestly don't pay much attention to what's going on nationally, because I have my hands full trying to beat this fine gentleman Raul for this campaign for city council, and that's where all my attention has been, and it should be, because this is a nonpartisan office for city council. There's a reason why there's no R's or D's by your names on the ballot, because we don't want politics, especially
sure. Okay, let me
stop.
Will you say specifically one way or the other? Would you vote for Donald Trump, or would you vote for Joe Biden?
Yeah. I might leave it blank, to tell you the truth. I honestly might leave it blank, because after last night, I was just so incredibly disappointed. I think the American people were disappointed in the performance of our two presidential candidates, and it was impressive, and it didn't inspire me.
Got it. Leave it blank is a fair answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so some people who live in Allied Gardens are concerned about dust and air pollution from the Superior Ready Mix Quarry on Mission Gorge Road. Do you think this is a problem, and what would you do about it? Raul, we could start with you.
Sure. So I was actually at a public meeting before COVID happened. It was in February. It was at the cidery over on Mission Gorge, right across from it, where we had about 60 people show up to hear a presentation about all the data that's been taken to show how there is a stench and dust on people's homes that have been coming from there, how the county and the air quality district have essentially abdicated their responsibility to make sure that the purity of the air in Allied Gardens is up to standard. I personally think that it's a nuisance. I know that part of the problem is that when you call the county from that part of town, Kristen Gaspar is your supervisor, and she's busier with other things and not really caring about the far southeast part of her district. But I was at that meeting, and I'm really concerned, and I recommended to a deputy city attorney, colleague of mine, to actually take a look into it because there might be some legal issues there. One of the things that happens is that when they're going to go out and do an air purity test, they actually warn the Superior Ready Mix that it's coming, and so they shut down for a few days so that it's clear and there's not particulates in the air, and so it comes out looking good. They were actually fined for a small amount because they tested over a course of a month. It met a certain barrier where they could be fined, but they were only fined for a single day worth of violation rather than a continual violation. So it really needs to be dug into, and we have to ask the owners there what more they can do, what technology they can upgrade to really protect the homes, because it's driving down the prices of property in Allied Gardens. People know that when they're moving in there, they see on Nextdoor, they hear from the realtors that this is there, and that's not good for anybody. We don't want that.
Okay. Noli, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, during our community cleanup on Mission Gorge, we were inhaling all that stuff. It was nasty stuff. On top of, they were actually repaving the adjacent driveway right next door. So we actually inhaled all that stuff. It's nasty stuff. I've been, in all my community work and these community groups, one thing I've learned is being on so many different community groups, get involved on your planning group, which I've been a part of, and the town councils, the action councils, and we got to unite as communities and as neighbors, and really unite and go to the city and put pressure on either Raul or myself as a city council, as our future city council member, to get things done and to work with the company that's producing all the dust. So it's a matter of and I'll be there for the community, and I have been there for the community for decades. I'm making sure that fighting for our neighborhoods. So, and I'll continue that because I come from that grassroots work, community work, and those groups to get things done. So, and when you put together your neighbors, you can fight against the city. I was able to fight me and my neighbors and my neighborhoods. We fought to save Skate World, which was supposed to be a done deal in Linda Vista when it was supposed to be a Target. It was turned into a Target developer. A big developer was going to come here and turn it to a Target. When the city told it, and all the city councilmen, Councilman Sherman and the mayor just said, it's a done deal. They followed all the guidelines, but you know what? We weren't going to give up, and we fought against the city, and we won. And okay, we'll do that if I'm elected city council member.
I think we have time for one more. So if we can both keep it short. So right now, Linda Vista is a food desert. How would you bring more small businesses and stores there? And Noli, we can start with you.
So that's my neighborhood. I mean, this is, one thing that I've been really working with is the University of San Diego, great institutions like the University of San Diego, and using the resources that the university has to benefit the underserved community of Linda Vista. I came up with an idea of using almost 10,000 students. They have a campus card where they have an account And so I worked with the USD administration where they can use their on-campus cash accounts at businesses in Linda Vista. And so using that economic power of those middle to upper income families and students from the University of San Diego and spending in Linda Vista. So that's one way we can boost the economic situation that's going on in Linda Vista to take advantage of the almost 10,000 students and staff and faculty at USD, where it's always been a struggle since the mid-90s to get students and staff to turn left out of the university. They always turn right to go towards the beach at Mission Beach. But the initiative is to make them turn left. And if we can offer them the ability to use their on-campus accounts at local businesses, that will make it more inviting for more businesses to come into Linda Vista. And that's one way that I've come up with. And I'm full of new ideas and out-of-the-box ideas like that.
Okay, and Raul, to you, what do you think?
Sure. So, not all of Linda Vista is a food desert. There are fresh groceries in the Vietnamese grocery store. That's sort of the heart of Linda Vista Boulevard going up the street. So what we have to say is, how do we connect people in Linda Vista to be able to get to the existing businesses? Because one of the really great things about Linda Vista is that it has some very old businesses, and we don't want to see an economic development tour come through and try to grab cherry pick spots and then lead to pushing out the small businesses that exist. So I think that fundamentally we got to improve the public transit and have very specific types of transportation. In downtown, one of the things that a lot of attorneys use to get around downtown is a free electric vehicle that goes and picks them up. You just call it on your phone. It goes, picks you up, and takes you to where you need to go. And I'm not sure why the city doesn't employ a similar mechanism so that people who live in the far north area of Linda Vista, when you're getting up towards Genesee and towards Mesa College, or if you live right over Tecolote Canyon, you turn left on Tate and you go towards Tecolote Canyon, find some sort of mechanism to transport them to what exists, because we can aim to bring in a Ralph's or another grocery store, but there's a really careful balance we have to have there. So I'm not sure exactly what the right way is, but improving the public transit so that it's free for people to get to the existing business, I think that would help the current business that's there.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you both. And thanks to everyone who was listening. Make sure you vote before Election Day, on Election Day, everybody. And Noli Zosa, Raul Campillo, thank you both so much.
Right. Thank you, Claire.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for joining us. Please help us spread the word by sharing our website, politifest.org. We have some other great sessions coming up at 6 p.m. next about some of the citywide ballot measures. If you want to tune into those, we have one about Measure A, which would levy an increase in property taxes to fund subsidized housing throughout the city. And we will also have a panel on Measure E, where city voters will decide whether to rescind the coastal height limit in the Midway community. If you've enjoyed today's session, please sign up for our politics report, which comes out every week at voiceofsandiego.org/newsletters.